good for everything. And you, well, you could, when you eating just, you eating the seeds. Yeah, but you can get the actual.
Honorable members, at the break, we were debating the Digital Assets and Registered Exchanges Amendment Bill 2022. I presume that we are ready to continue. The chair recognizes the honorable member for Freetown.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm always grateful to be able to rise in this honorable place through the grace of God waking me up every day and clothing me in my sound mind. And for the people of Freetown who were good enough to elect me and send me to this place to represent them. Distinct pleasure of being invited to an interesting place, bearing in mind what we are debating today. Crypto Isle, located East Bay Street across from Scotiabank in what used to be known as Luciano's. On the occasion of the celebration of a 100th birthday Bain and invitation was by virtue of constituent alliance, and my invitation was by virtue of the fact that Mrs. Moxie Major is 100 years Ragged Island strong.
Wow.
And so, family. But it is interesting that she was introduced by her granddaughter, Gillian Bethel, who runs that organization, or that site, who is said to speak passionately about digital assets in that very place, under that cabana, and where we stood. And to hear, as two generations being caught up in this new cutting-edge technology speaks to what everybody has spoken to. I would also crave your indulgence, Madam Speaker, to mention something that's near and dear to my heart that is personal to me, and that is that last month was Autism Awareness Month. And being the father and grandfather of children on the spectrum, it is a matter of personal concern to me. And in the hearing of everyone here and watching, autism is something that does good work in this area. Has circulated a survey to seek to ascertain the levels of persons on the spectrum in this country, where they are on the spectrum, so that they may make representation to the government, who can then properly form public policy to address the needs of autistic persons in this country. Initially, the government has an obligation to educate all children to the mandatory statutory age. Yes. But thereafter, Madam Speaker, as Dwayne Gibson so passionately says, I'm fond about this, but my colleagues know say what I say. I say personally that Reach is to be commended, their work is to be commended. And they are deserving of support. And when they do make representation with accurate figures, I'm quite confident that the member for Cat Island, Rumkey, and San Salvador, being the caring man that he is, that it will receive proper attention by this New Day government. Madam Speaker, repetitive. What I would say is this, as the young people say, I don't intend not to give the opposition their props. And you have to. And I see my MP knows me well from our days of communing in chambers together. You set the groundwork and then you say the but. So let me set the groundwork. One must accept as a fact that the act that is being amended is the Digital Assets and Registered Exchanges Act 2020. And as a matter of fact, we know that anyone in this has anything other than the good of the people as their motivation for being here. I am not a cynic. I know personally the sacrifices persons make to be here, and all of us to a certain degree. And so I will not say, as some extremists may say, that I think that the opposite side is wicked and evil and means the country no good. That would be completely not, that would be completely not true. I am of the view that we all try our best to advance the well-being of our country as best we can. Remember that from the days of communing. We differ on execution and the efficiency of execution. And sometimes we differ on policy. And so, Madam Speaker, to give some examples of differences on how we may all have the same good ideal, but execute them differently and have different policy consideration. All we need to is consider housing. The side opposite, while in government, desire was to provide affordable housing, to produce affordable housing. And so the position isn't that somehow they meant the country not well. It is simply that we adopt different approaches to do it. And the electorate will determine which one they determine to be better. The other matter of some moment, Madam Speaker, arises when there is an opportunity that has not happened before. There may be a difference in how we decide to answer that call, who we decide, and we've had lots of talk about it. And an example of that would be feeding people when they need feeding. The other side chose a particular way of doing it, which is the subject of examination now. When this administration was last in government, the decision was to empower Bahamians by giving them their own debit card where they could attend at a food establishment, keep their dignity, and use the money goal execute different manners. And everyone has the good of the country at heart. And in that instance, there is one approach, the PLP approach of empowering the people, as happened, and then there is the opposite approach. And so I repeat, in anything I say, I am not suggesting that anybody in what they did necessarily had ill intent. From 30 years of practice and what is happening, we must bear So what does that have to do with the Digital Assets and Registered Exchanges Amendment Act? And I'm not going to be very long in this. It is simply this, and I would draw this House attention to the provision of the original legislation as passed by the previous administration and its structure. Section 4 of that act set up that the Securities Commission would administer the act. And by subsection 2, it was to do it to ensure the orderly development and continuation of digital assets activity in as an initial token. That is a sensible, laudable thing. What one then finds, Madam Speaker, is that at Section 24 of the Act, there was imposed upon the registrants under the Act a duty to maintain professional conduct. And this is what sets them apart from not-for-profits, because you will not find this in the Non-Profit Act or regulations. By Section 24, every registrant has, and it says shall, which is mandated as A, act honestly and fairly. B, act with due skill, care, and diligence. C, observe and maintain a high standard of professional conduct. D, refrain from engaging in any improper or illegal conduct. E, maintain adequate financial resources and solvency. F, have efficient, effective arrangements in place for the protection of clients' assets and money. G, have effective corporate governance arrangements consistent with guidance issued by the Commission. And H, have systems in place to prevent, detect, and disclose money laundering, terrorist financing, and suspicious transaction pursuant to the anti-money laundering legislation. The Non-for-Profit Act and Regs contains G and H, but does not contain A through F. Why am I taking us through all of this? As I say, the member for Centerville, the member for Cat Island, Rumpke, and San Salvador, the member for South and Central Andros, the member for East Grand Bahama, all have set out at length the provisions of this act. I say this for a very simple reason. In this area, in this crypto space, in any space, one is regulating conduct. The previous administration, to give them their due, wisely put in Section 24 positive duties. And that's important because the regulator then is enforcing those duties and can use a breach of any of those duties as a predicate to exercise any of the expanded powers that Parliament is now giving the Commission. And I say this for a very simple reason, and to address something that has been being repeated over and over again in this place. Two things. The first, that somehow the Honorable Prime Minister is leveling allegations at somebody. And two, somehow that there is some breach of the Public Procurement Act by this administration. To address the first thing first, the reality of what was advanced was that certain organizations were not being responsive. That could be for ill reasons, for good reasons, or for no reason. But they were not being responsive. The ability to coerce them to be responsive is limited to the laws that are on the books. And the reality of it, quite bluntly, is that if you do not tell me what you have done with something, I don't know. Now, when you do tell me, I might discover that you've acted completely properly. But in that state of affairs, the most that I can say is, I don't know where it went. And you haven't told me. I cannot say positively what you have done with it. That is what I understand to be the member for Cat Island, Ramkey and San Salvador's position. Other people may jump to the conclusion that you've done something dishonest. And if you jump to that conclusion, you would characterize what I say when I say, I don't know what you've done with the money, you haven't told me. Those persons would characterize that I've accused you of something wrong, which is not the case. I've simply stated the fact. I don't know what you've done with the money. You haven't told me. We haven't seen it yet. And to be quite clear, as I understand it, that means you may be able, if you decide to be cooperative, to be able to explain what you did with it, and there may not be an issue. When we look at the provisions that we are now putting in place with regard to digital assets and registered exchanges, if for the reasons under this Act, a registrant were to adopt that position, the Security Commission can demand persons to attend and give evidence under oath. And if you don't give evidence under oath, they can then go to court to get you cited for contempt and to book a place for you at the Bahamas Department of Corrections. There is being given to the Securities Commission by this amendment the ability to remove from registrants under this Act of the ability to say, I'm not going to tell you, I'm not going to help you. It gives a necessary tool, and it's perhaps demonstrative that at this time that we're addressing the other issue, that Parliament has seen fit to use the words of South and Central Andros to close these loopholes, to make sure that you cannot tell us that, to make sure that we can get to the bottom of it. And so plainly, as I see it, in my humble view, that simply marks the difference in the two positions of the two leaders of parties in this House. And I would say that, to use the words of closing loopholes, anxious consideration would have to be given to whether there's a need to extend the power of the registrar under the Non-Profit Act. That is what our business is supposed to be about in this place, making laws to address issues. And before I move on quickly to the assertion of breaches of the Public Procurement Act, I would repeat, for the avoidance of doubt, that if I say, I don't know what you've done with the money because you haven't told me, I have stated those facts. It is within your breast and knowledge to provide facts that will cause me to say, I now know what you have done and I have no issue with it. It is as simple as that, and I would suggest that that is the healthy way to approach it. And persons with clear consciences have no difficulty with that as an assertion. If you know you've done nothing wrong, you show your hand and be done with it. Transparency really is to assist the person who is being transparent in keeping everything in order. And so I am pleased to say, as set out by Centerville, that registrants under this act do not have that ability given the amendments and the powers now given to the Securities Commission. And yes, it builds on work that was done by the previous administration. It strengthens it, and we will, as every government is bound to do, continue to consider strengthening all laws, ones that were passed under PLP administrations and ones that were passed under F&M administrations. That then brings me, Madam Speaker, to a very simple thing. I think I've heard over the last 5 to 6 months an assertion that this administration has not complied with the Public Procurement Act. Today, we heard an assertion that it has been stated that it has intention to amend it and that we must comply with it until we amend it. That is indeed true. The issue that one takes with that is the assertion of non-compliance. The Public Procurement Act was passed by the previous administration on the 26th of March, 2021, but wasn't brought into force until September. So it lie fallow on the books for 6 months as we approach the run-up to an election cycle. If one was suspicious, one could make something of that. But one needn't necessarily do that. It may be that persons were very busy doing other things for 6 months, particularly bearing in mind that one of the election promises was legislation just like this from 2017. So from 2017 to March 2021, they had other things to do. And then having gotten around to do it, it being gazetted the 26th of March 2021, they then didn't get around to bring it into force until September, 6 months later. Those are the facts. Now, there appears to be an assertion of failure to comply with this. I would say that we are left with what the other side put in place. The other side chose, by Section 3 of the Public Procurement Act, to exempt a whole raft of transactions from this act, because Section 3(2) says this act shall not apply to A, the extent that they conflict with where you're doing procurement for a donor. Okay, that's fine. Procurement's governed by different rules. That's fine. The acquisition of rental properties, existing buildings, or other immovable properties or rights therein. That's a wide raft of procurement. The procurement or acquisition of fiscal agency or depository services, liquidation or management services for regulated financial institutions, and a number of other professional services, including actuarial and accounting services, legal advisory services, and briefs, and 2 other classes. Why do I advance that, Madam Speaker? The obligation to disclose procurement contract is on the procurement entity, which the other side chose to define as somebody other than a minister of the government, or in fact, the government. To do it within 60 days is not put on any member of the government, and the annual report is something that's compelled by the financial secretary. That is the state of the law as the other side passed it. But to give a simple example, I advise East Grand Bahama, and I see the Minister for Grand Bahama coming in, so she would like this good news too, that the information passed to me about the police station at, not Sweetings Key, what's the, McLeanstown. I can happily report that the procurement unit in the ministry says that those furniture should be in next week. They're to be split, I believe, between the police station at West End, the temporary station. I did actually go and see the police station at West End, and I didn't go to East End, and it wasn't any prejudicial thing. It's just that the station in West End has to be condemned for structural problems. And the Commissioner of Police and the OC of Grand Bahama wanted me to see quite clearly why they need the station demolished and rebuilt. But that is a procurement that is actually done in the ministry, whose accounting officer is my permanent secretary, whose obligation to notify of the details of that procurement falls on the permanent secretary 60 days from the time that it's done. That is actually a contract caught by the Procurement Act. The simple point I make, and it's not to be pedantic, is that our business in this place is, if we believe that there should be certain steps that should be taken, it's to advance that for legislation. We don't make it an obligation by saying somebody has breached it. What we do as legislators is to sit down with advice, look at these pieces of legislation, and decide what best to do with them. And so that is what is being done now. There will be amendments proposed, as has been indicated. The side opposite, clearly, if it feels that they can be strengthened, will make recommendations that can be considered. But it does not make it the law to constantly accuse this administration of breaking laws that the other side chose not to put in place. It is as simple as that. And so the moral of the story is that legislation can always be improved. This amendment is an example of this. I would simply implore, just as the Honorable Prime Minister has not made any untoward allegation against anyone, that the side opposite stop making unfounded assertions of this side's failure to comply with the Procurement Act that they put in place and happen not to put any obligation on any government minister. to do anything.
Thank you, Honorable Member. The Chair recognizes the Honorable Member for Marco City.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. We made several assertions with respect to the Procurement Act, which we know the three members opposite voted for. One of the things we clearly said is that the present government, while in opposition, was insistent upon the government consistently, as it relates to COVID spending and otherwise, consistently reveal what contracts have you entered into. So one of the things that we have asserted is that in that same spirit, that it is important that the public be made aware, since coming to government, what contracts has this government entered into. So what I find quite remarkable about what is now being stated by the member for Freetown is that he is looking at some provision in the law and seeking to make the case to the public that the government's failure to be transparent about contract allocation has to do with, in his estimation, some provisions that are missing. My question is, are you interested in being transparent in revealing to the public all of the arrangements that you've been entering into, which is similar to the standard you placed on the government when we were in power just nine months ago? So it doesn't matter how it is stated and phrased. What is important is that we would like to know what contracts you've entered into. So two things we have done. One, I've written the Prime Minister directly, asking to please reveal what contracts you've entered into, because we are unclear. Some contractors who've missed opportunities, they are unclear and feel disadvantaged. The second thing we've done is made a request for the list of contracts that the government has entered into on behalf of the Bahamian people, and we did so through the Public Accounts Committee. We have not gotten a response, even though the 14-day period, which is the ordinary time for that work to be done, has long passed. So I'm saying there are two other things we have done to ask about the contracts, independent of the Procurement Act. And under none of the three attempts we have made, Procurement Act, writing the Prime Minister directly, asking through the Public Accounts Committee, under no scenario has the government been responsive. That is the point we're making, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The Chair recognizes the Honourable Member.
Madam Speaker, it's a matter of apples and oranges. If you declare a state of emergency, you subject yourself to the Emergency Powers Act. They then made emergency powers regulations thereunder, and those regulations say that in order for us to know what you are prioritizing in a state that you say is a state of emergency, it puts the onus on a government minister, the competent authority, the Minister of Finance, to lay it in the House. That's a different statutory provision. I make no issue about the opposition asking for anything. That was not the point. The point was that there was an assertion that there was a breach of the Public Procurement Act. If the member for Marco City wishes to say that they've written and haven't had positive response, that's a factual reality. But to continue to seek to assert a breach of an actual law, which is a serious thing, is a different matter. So yes, you've written and you've asked and you may not have gotten it. Granted, those are facts, but to assert a breach of the law is a completely different matter, just as we can positively assert that there was a breach of the emergency powers regulation, because the regulation required the tabling of how this money was spent. The regulation itself, when you got that big power, you subject yourself to certain things that you otherwise wouldn't be subject to.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The Chair recognizes the Honourable Member for Marco City.
Madam Speaker, let me make this as clear as possible for the general public. It does not matter how this subject is coached by either side. What matters is this: the government of the Bahamas has entered into, in this case, the New Day government, hundreds of contracts. We are unclear with whom they entered into these contracts, for what amounts, for what duration. The question is, what would prevent a government committed to transparency and clarity on the business they're doing on your behalf from revealing that information to the public? Since the opposition, many contractors who have been denied opportunities to secure contracts are unclear on who has been issued contracts, for what amounts, for what duration. Madam Speaker, this is a simple discussion about why does the government not reveal the contracts it's entering into. They can coach this in any language possible or they desire. It does not camouflage for this public the fact that they are not being transparent.
The chair recognizes the honourable member.
Madam Speaker, the next thing that's incumbent on legislators is to actually read the state of the legislation before we take office. Certainly to consider the legislation that we bring into force. And under the previous government, having spent tons of money and ensconced an information commissioner to understand the scheme of transparency that they have bought into. The scheme of transparency is, if you're under emergency powers orders, you table what you do with our money, because that's an emergency situation. We don't have the access that we do outside of that. Secondly now, in a context that we have decided as a legislator, not this particular one, but the scheme of the availability of transparency through the Freedom of Information Act, the other side appointed the commissioner, not necessarily following the statutory formula, but he's in office. His deputy is in office. The other side is really in a position to educate the public, since that's all this is, speaking to the public. The public is advised that the upgraded, strengthened Freedom of Information Act, passed by the Christie administration, brought into force before the 2017 election, now fully enforced with the Freedom of Information Commissioner, is there to be used. And it specifies what you can ask for, and if you don't get it, it actually gives you the ability to demand it. And so this education of the public just by asking questions, when the side opposite ought to know that the state of the law passed by this House gives positive coercive methods to get what you want if you're entitled to it. And one of the class of contracts that, for whatever reason, is excluded from the Public Procurement Act, and also by that is people's personal employment contracts. It's a number of other contracts. I hear about we granted hundreds of contracts. Well, you can go, since you say there are contractors who are upset. The Freedom of Information Commissioner is in office with his deputy. You can make the request. If you don't get it, there are positive ways that you can demand it. It's a very strong bill. There was one previously passed by an Ingram administration. The Christie Davis administration went to public consultation, shored it up completely, and brought it into force. I think my learned friend, the then Attorney General, Carl Bethel, paid to bring some West Indians in to educate public servants about the use. And the Minnis administration put the commissioner and deputy commissioner in place. Everyone on the other side except St. Anne's was there for 2 terms. And so all of them should know this. And so to continue to hear this, which I take as just playing to the public is better placed being educated about what the law is, because knowledge is power, and that's the reality of it.
Thank you, Honourable Member Asmini. The Chair recognizes the Honourable Member for St. Anne's.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Here on the debate to the Digital Assets and Registered Exchanges Act. Here on the debate for the Digital Assets and Registered Exchanges Act. Before I begin my contribution, Madam Speaker, I'd like to give recognition to Shanae Barr, who was the Youth in Parliament representative that represented the great constituent of St. Anne's, as well as one of our very own constituents, Shelby Bowe, who represented the Killarney constituency on the day that the youth was here in Parliament representing the future of this great country so very well. Madam Speaker, as we participate in today's debate proceedings, we know that the world's Bitcoin markets have recently sustained a destructive fall in valuation. Billions have been lost and thousands, if not millions of persons face financial ruin. Some, their entire life savings have been wiped out. And Madam Speaker, it wasn't like this on April 25th. Something happened after April 25th, Madam Speaker, that caused this tragic change in the great fortune of cryptocurrencies, bringing people around the world. Well, what happened, you say? Well, Madam Speaker, what happened indeed? And this is very serious. The cryptocurrency industry was thriving, booming. The DARE Act came into effect under the F&M. The most respected industry leader in the digital cryptocurrency world arrived on our shores under the F&M. And then a day after April 25th, something happened. You gotta love these fellas, Madam Speaker. They had to find their way onto the stage and go big and bold to the world. They are reapers, Madam Speaker. And in recognition of Centerville, Madam Speaker, they are reapers all the way. On September 16th, 2021, Bitcoin was valued at $47,739. On April 25th, 2022, Bitcoin was valued at $40,458. And 2 weeks later, Bitcoin crashed, and today is valued at $29,769.51. It's gone down, Madam Speaker, almost 50% since the F&M left office. Madam Speaker, how does the saying go? How does the saying go? You shake a man's hand and he can shake your future? Madam Speaker, I shook the Prime Minister's hand today, so I know it wasn't him. My future is bright. I'm blessed. Madam Speaker, I don't want to say anything more about it, because you know at the end of the day, the record is clear. The F&M government brought them in, markets were high, and Madam Speaker, a new day is not good for everybody, and it's certainly not proving to be good times for our new cryptocurrency industry. And as my friend Pamela Francina Wallace Miller says, now they in government. Not new day, but now they in government. But that is why we're here, and thank you, Jesus, that we are. We are here to build it back better, and through our collaborative energy, make crypto great again. Madam Speaker, that is optimistic thinking. The rising of digital currencies is not dependent on what we are doing in this honorable House, but the future of our nation's place in the digital asset industry is. Recently, Sam Bankman-Fried gave an interview where he criticized Bitcoin for not being a payments network, comparing it to more like gold, where it has an asset and store value, but it's not able to handle millions of transactions. He said, things that you're doing millions of transactions a second with have to be extremely efficient and lightweight and low energy cost. Proof of stake networks are. This was the first time in preparing for this contribution that I've heard this term, proof of stake networks. Up until this time, if someone said proof of stake, I would take my knife and go deep into the meat and see if it wasn't cooked too rare. But I'm learning much, Madam Speaker. And it's time to do so because we're at the forefront of this great cryptocurrency industry. For the general public, proof of stake and proof of work are the two main ways for crypto networks to verify transactions. The first calls on the networks to put up currency as collateral, that's their stake, to approve a new blockchain, a new block on the chain. And the second, proof of work, requires high-powered computers to compete to solve puzzles, to participate, which can eat up a lot of electricity. Madam Speaker, the point is that the industry is continuously evolving. Proof of work systems are becoming less desirable for payment networks compared to proof of stake networks. What we are seeing in the industry today is not an end to it, but an evolution. We must maintain our stake in the industry with our partners to expand their operations and maintain our competitiveness in the industry jurisdiction. Recently, the OECD, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, released a public consultation document on new global tax transparency framework for the reporting of exchange of crypto assets and the automatic exchange of financial information between countries. The global regulators are catching up and are coming for the digital asset transactions that presently can occur without the intervention of traditional financial intermediaries and central administrators. The G20, which is comprised of members representing the most of the world's largest economies, wants tax-relevant information to be automatically exchanged on persons engaging in certain crypto asset transactions. They want crypto exchange businesses to apply due diligence procedures to identify their customers and report the values of their transfers and exchanges. The digital cryptocurrency industry will evolve due to market factors and also due to regulation. The DARE Amendment Bill has been prepared to further protect our industry against money laundering. It is a step in the right direction, Madam Speaker, and I am so honored to be involved. The DARE Amendment Bill proposes changes by Section 39's new subsection 3, having a system implemented to identify persons not registered but carrying on or purporting to carry on digital asset business activities. Also by a new Section 40A and 40B, require persons with information on, or documents relative to an investigation before the Commission to answer questions under oath, require them to produce documents, give explanations on particulars, and through application to the court by the Commission to have such persons committed for contempt. And also by new Section 42B, which imposes a penalty of up to $100,000 on persons who fail to comply with the directive of the Commission. And finally, most significantly, a new Section 46A, which can freeze them, forcing funds and digital assets and other property to be held and not withdrawn when it is in the public interest to do so for the administration of digital asset laws or to assist in administration of the digital asset legislation of another jurisdiction. Madam Speaker, working together, we are headed in the right direction, and I can't but smile of thinking where our digital asset and regulated exchanges business will be in 5, 10 years, and 20 years. It is truly an exciting time, Madam Speaker, and we are forward united. Madam Speaker, as I close, I wish to recognize FTX, the former Minister of Finance, Mr. Peter Turnquest, the former Financial Secretary, Marlon Johnson, Christina Roll and Michelle Martinborough, and the wider team of staff and board members at the Securities Commission for bringing this opportunity to our shores. Madam Speaker, St. Anne supports this bill, and may God protect us and bless us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Asmini? The Chair recognizes the Honourable Member for Kalani.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Everybody moving along so quickly. Madam Speaker, before I start, I want to state that once you're out, you're out. Once ago, I used to sit in a chair with armrests. And now, Madam Speaker, if I want to rest my arm, I have to rest it on the back. And as I looked in here, there are only two, myself and the member for Nassau Village. Now, I'm a little older, so he don't have such challenge. So, Madam Speaker, at least I'm out. But can I have a chair back with an armrest? You don't have to punish me that much. And Madam Speaker, last week they had Youth in Parliament, and I watched segments of it. I was very impressed with the young people. I thought they did an excellent job. They were very focused. And what I saw was future leaders. I was also more impressed with the young lady who sat in this chair. She had armrest at that time. Miss Shelby Bowe, who represented Galani. I thought Ms. Bowe did an excellent job, and I only want to say to her that I was impressed, and she has a bright future in politics. And once Long Island, and once she continue in that manner and in that light, I'm certain that she will be one of our future leaders as we move forward. But Madam Speaker, the Digital Assets and Registered Exchange Bill 2022 is designed to provide for the Securities Commission to implement systems to identify any person who is not registered under the Act and who is carrying on, involved in, or purporting to carry on, or be involved in digital asset business. The amendment promotes the compliance of the Bahamas with Financial Action Task Force requirements to ensure that individuals are operating legally in the cryptocurrency market. The Bahamas needs to continue to promote itself as a safe and a responsible financial service destination, including in the broad range of digital assets in this sector. And we must continue to promote diversification in various sectors of our economy, including in financial services. Madam Speaker, the news about and the reality of the global economy is mixed, as it is here in our Bahamas. We are seeing growth in a number of areas, the rebound of which began during the FNM's last administration, and this includes an increase in government revenues, the broader reopening of the tourism sector, and a decrease in unemployment. In Grand Bahama, construction has begun on a new cruise port, which the FNM negotiated. The development, you can stand, the development of the new world-class cruise port continues apace. But there are also warning signs and dark clouds on the horizon because of, one, the aftermath of the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. Two, the war in Ukraine and the effects on food prices, including foods and feed made from wheat. Global energy concerns, the ongoing effects of climate change, and other economic factors. Depending on how the government of the Bahamas responds or fails to respond responsibly, it can make matters worse or better for the Bahamian people. Madam Speaker, today marks the 8th month since last year's general election, the first-year anniversary of which is fast approaching. September will be here before you know it. And during the past 8 months, it is abundantly clear that the PLP and the Davis administration do not broadly understand nor fully appreciate what is happening globally and the many effects on the Bahamas. The government has little clue, little or no plans, and clearly no ambitious legislation agenda, even as the Prime Minister continues his endless globe-trotting. This is, Madam Speaker, despite the fact
The chair recognizes the Honorable Member for Cat Island, Rum, Keynes, and Salvador.
You stop the clock. Madam Speaker, the member for Kalani suggests that the Davis administration doesn't understand what's happening in the world and perhaps he could just move away from his contribution, identify the things that he thinks we don't understand, and let's debate it to see whether he understands what he thinks he understands. Let's see, this is not Dr. Menace. This is not Dr. Menace. See, don't just make these broad sides, because any issue that you think is impacting us, that you don't think we know about, I know about, or we are not addressing, let's debate it. You come up and say, well, there's climate change. He ain't understand that. He ain't know what's going on. And let's start talking about that. Let's say, tell me what of climate change, for example. Let's talk about inflation. And let's come tell me. So you don't just come and broadside and say, he ain't know this, he ain't know that. Let's tell me what I don't know, that you know, and let's see who knows what. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Member. The chair
Madam
recognizes
Speaker,
the Honorable Member for Kalani.
not to be deterred, I'm happy the member brought that up, because as he listens, he would see what I'm talking about, as opposed to me getting in a back-to-back argument. This is despite the fact that they claimed prior to coming to office that they had a vision, plans, and ideas for economic recovery. It is now clear that their plan was to try to take credit for an economic recovery that already began on the FNM's watch. And Madam Speaker, a quote from the Prime Minister himself in the Nassau Guardian, I don't have it available, but the member said, the success and the positivity things that are being seen today are as a result of the FNMs. I can get the exact words. It is now clear, Madam Speaker, that their plans was to, in 8 months in office, the Prime Minister may have been out of the country for more than 2 months, which is about 25% or a quarter of the time they have been in office. And at this rate, he may spend more than 1 year of his 5-year term away from the Bahamas. He is clearly more interested in and comfortable in traveling than he is in governing. Madam Speaker, as legislators and political leaders, we have the responsibility of making laws and implementing programs to improve the quality of life and to meet the needs of the Bahamian people. That is why the FNM developed the largest feeding program in Bahamian history during the global pandemic. I remind the House, Madam Speaker, that the Prime Minister viciously and repeatedly attacked various elements of the program in the House. When we were in office, the PLP opposed us just for opposing sake. And
the chair recognizes the honourable member for Fort Chalice.
Madam Speaker, on a point of order, a report has been tabled which, based on a technical report which directly contradicts what the honourable member has stated. But I just want to refer the member, and these are the rules. This is why I call it a point of order. It says, members, as a general rule, shall not read their speech. I mean, that's the rules of the House.
Yes, it is.
But the second point is that the honourable member for Kalani would have made an assertion which I don't know whether the honourable member missed the tabling of the report or perhaps may not have had an opportunity to read the report, and therefore the member may wish to reserve that portion of his written speech until he would have had an opportunity to read the report.
Thank you, honourable member.
Thank you very much, Professor. Madam Speaker, Madam Speaker, I have said that I will have that complete report analyzed because I want to go in detail with that report during the debate. At that time, I have Madam Speaker, I have for certain time. Their concern, Madam Speaker, their concern, I have an hour then, was not the betterment of the Bahamas. Their concern was power. They were often surprised during the worst of the pandemic when we proposed life-saving measures. For political gain, the PLP usually found a way to criticize and to oppose. It is unhealthy for democracy when politicians put constant political benefits above the basic needs of a people. But that is the way of the now governing party. I have taken a different view. If the governing side proposes policies or legislation to advance the country or its institutions, I support it, Professor. I support the bill before us to strengthen the regulatory regime regarding digital assets and digital assets providers. I supported the recent legislation on carbon trading and will support other measures related to the global climate emergency. It is important for our country to always be known as a responsible jurisdiction in which to do business. Regulators or industry partners often proposes bills such as this to bolster oversight regimes. My concern with this administration is that too often when we come to the House, we mostly debate minor amendments and bills. The PLP does not come here to make significant changes to the laws to improve the lives of the Bahamians. There is a clear and simple reason for this. They have no real legislative agenda. The new day they promised is the same old day we have seen from them before. It is their old and tested formula of governance. First, they promise the people things they cannot deliver. Once in power, they quickly give jobs and contracts to supporters and others they may simply want to get on their side. And their organization long ago abandoned the idea of being progressive. They are so focused on getting all of their people straight that the PLP spends little time governing the Bahamas. If others did not want this bill to improve the management of the digital asset sector, this administration would likely have nothing to say or do. That is a tragedy of this administration. Madam Speaker, their lack of focus on leading was on full display the other day when we had the unfortunate deaths in Exuma. Tourism is our #1 industry. When 3 visitors mysteriously died at a resort in Exuma, Bahamians expected to hear from the Prime Minister. But guess what? He was out of the country again, missing from duty. He was traveling yet again.
Yeah. The chair recognizes the honorable member for Fort Child.
Madam Speaker, this matter is a matter which is currently under investigation.
Yes, yes, Honorable.
It's a matter.
I say
It's a matter.
I said
It's a
nothing about
matter.
the case.
No. It's a matter of extreme
Yes.
international sensitivity
Yes.
with profound implications for tourism, as well as the international reputation of the
Yes.
Commonwealth of the Bahamas. And while, Madam Speaker, we are engaged in robust and thrust, the national interests should be paramount.
Yes. Yes, honorable member.
Madam Speaker, I
ask you to
understand the
withdraw that.
sensitivity.
That's very sensitive.
And I had no intentions of speaking about that particular case.
Yes, we cannot use the lie.
The Prime Minister, Madam Speaker.
I have that stricken from the record for me. We have to the family could be watching.
The Prime
We just
Minister,
don't know.
Madam Speaker, is saying the world, while there's crisis after crisis at home, there are record murders. There is high unemployment. There is high inflation.
The chair
The
recognizes the
Bahamians
honorable member for
struggling
Cat Island Rum,
to
Kingston,
pay for
Salvador.
gas and food and goods.
Honorable member.
Speaker. Speaker. Whenever I have traveled, and I'm traveling, but I travel on the people's business. And I'm happy to report that the standing of this country as a result of my travel has been reset. They didn't know the Bahamas anymore. And I don't want to speak to some of the embarrassing encounters.
Yeah, don't tell them what they tell them. We saw some of
All right, some of the embarrassing encounters. All right, but I can safely say that when I travel on the people's business.
That's right.
Seeing the world, I've seen the world. I just reach. I've been there and done that. I don't need. I was doing that long before I was here. So to get to this, to get this to this pure to talk about travel, we travel in the people's business, and you see, he's the very one who just was criticizing or broadsiding about I don't know what's going on in the world to be able to address what's happening here. Well, you know, I could safely say that he didn't understand what's in the world. When he traveled, he's talking about how corrupt the country was. Remember? He didn't go over there to talk about how we fit into the geopolitical affairs of this world and how we could benefit and how we could stand up to the world to ensure that what's for us is for us. And what we need to get, we ought to get. And to let the world know the state of our vulnerabilities and the responsibility that the world have to respond to those vulnerabilities. Yes. Speaker, we ain't gonna do that sitting down in my chair here. No. And wherever I go, be in touch. And I understand this world. So to suggest that I'm traveling because I want to see the world or I'm on it. I saw the world a long time. There's no place in this world. You can find something else to say, man? You won't travel because you couldn't speak to people. You're afraid. You didn't have the confidence in yourself to talk to world leaders. And to talk to people and put the case for the Bahamian people.
Very difficult for the pot to be calling the kettle black. So may I proceed?
That's what you're going to do right now.
Madam Speaker, there are such things as deflection. And I won't be deflected, not today. There are matters that concern the Bahamian people. Record murders, high unemployment, high inflation, with Bahamians struggling to pay for gas and food and goods just to survive. And when they look for their Prime Minister for help and guidance, all too often, they can't find him. Like I said, you're traveling. And like some say, you can't find Johnny Roker in town.
Jerry.
Jerry Roker. But they may change that, you know. You're right. You're right. They may change it from Jerry Roker. They may change it now to Brave Davis in town. They may now change it to Brave Davis. Sadly, in a time, Madam Speaker, of multiple crises, we have unfocused leader. And the Deputy Prime Minister sees it all too well. He's no longer calling the government the Davis administration anymore. He's calling it the Davis-Cooper administration. And this is very telling. It's quite revealing. And I want to ask, where did the member for Ragged Island starting to make his move? I don't know. He sees that the man who is supposed to be in the chair does not want to stay at his desk in the country and do his work. You know, Madam Speaker, when I was in office, I regularly went to OPM, even on the weekend, to catch up on work. If I travel, I spend extra time at night to catch up. Being Prime Minister is a 24/7 job. I guess one can't blame the deputy for assuming as much authority as possible. Someone has to govern the country, or at least being seen to govern. If the man with the post just wants to travel, then guess what? Somebody has to do it. I am hearing many rumblings, Madam Speaker, coming out of Cabinet, and it's getting very, very louder. The Bahamian people want us in this place to also debate more meaningful legislation to uplift them in hard times. Bills such as this to upgrade the regulations surrounding digital assets are necessary, but they will not lower the cost of food or the cost of gas. It is important to promote and help out our new industries with the hope that they grow in time. However, the mother from Baintown can't buy food to feed her family. The father from Engliston doesn't have enough money to fill his car with gas to get to work. And the student graduating now and in the weeks ahead wants to know what their educational and job prospects are, which is why we ensured free education at both UB and BTVI. Bahamians, young and middle-aged and seniors, are not hearing any solutions from the New Day government for their everyday anxieties and problems. In fact, what they hear from the governing party is cold-hearted indifference. The media keep asking. The media, Madam Speaker, keeps asking the Minister of Economic Affairs what the government intends to do to combat out of control inflation. And the minister seems oblivious. He gives technical and emotionless answers like he is in an economics class. Does he and others in cabinet believe it is okay raising taxes on poor people, on poor people's food via the Davis breadbasket tax? Does the PLP think there is nothing to be done about the high gas prices? The people see the coldness in this New Day administration. The people see the indifference. Yes, it is true that there is a global inflation problem. But the Davis breadbasket tax was a choice. It was cruel. It was heartless, a heartless attack on our people. And this administration could remove the Davis breadbasket tax if it chose to. This administration could cut the gas taxes. The governing side has chosen not to help the people in these ways. Instead, they've increased real property tax in some instances 4 times what it was before. Increased the tax on the middle class while decreasing taxes on caviar and champagne. Those in the PLP have their big salaries, their fancy cars, and since coming to office 8 months ago, they have become accustomed to good life. They cannot connect with the struggles of ordinary people. Bahamians should take note. Our people have struggles, and those who govern them are living good. Madam Speaker, and I will adopt and sign the article at the end of my speech. A recent editorial in the Nassau Guardian described the state of affairs in the country. The editorial, which I wish to adopt, stated, I quote, "It is a sad reality in New Providence that many of the most vulnerable are the least able to protect themselves from the more dangerous pitfalls of life. Young children often walk to school through gang zones that vary from street to street in many inner city communities where gunfire can be a regular occurrence. Many of these same students find themselves, I'm quoting, of which I adopt."
The chair recognizes the honourable member for Fort Charlotte.
Madam Speaker.
Oh, again. Carry on, Professor.
The honourable member did in fact say he will adopt this editorial, but the rules require, Madam Speaker, it says here, and such are relevant to the business under debate.
Yes.
In other words, Madam Speaker, when you choose to quote, it must be relevant to the debate, and you must adopt it. That's what it says. It says every member
Members
desiring
ready to speak.
A member may read extract from books, journals, papers, and documents, and may refresh his memory from notes. But he shall not quote from newspapers unless he adopts such quote as his own words, and such are relevant to the business under debate. The business under debate, as I understand it, Madam Speaker, is the Digital Asset and Registered Exchange Amendment Bill and also the Financial Transaction Reporting Amendment Bill.
That is
What
correct.
does this quote?
If you allow me.
No, I'm talking about the quote that you just quoted.
If you allow me.
It's not relevant.
If you will sit
And on
down,
the basis
Professor,
of
and allow
relevance,
me.
Madam Speaker, I would move that it be struck from the record.
Madam Speaker.
The chair recognizes the honourable member for St. Anne's.
We've heard today from members on both sides, more so on the governing side, a number of matters that aren't relevant to today's debate. Is the honorable member from Fort Charlotte now requesting that his member statements also be redacted and withdrawn? If that's how you want to play it, let's play it. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
Honorable member.
Madam Speaker.
The chair recognizes the honorable member.
Madam Speaker, the bill we are debating refers to the economy, how you improve the economy. You improve the economy, you improve the quality of life. We recognize that our economy is based on mainly one factor, tourism. We're trying to expand our economy. You cannot expand your economy without understanding what are the problems you're facing, because you have to understand the problems, correct those problems, or what you're trying to do to improve the economy won't happen. This addresses the problems, okay? Young children often walk to school through gang zones that vary from street to street. They further go on to quote, in many inner city communities where gunfire can be a regular occurrence. Many of these same students find themselves having to avoid sexual predators and other bad actors with tenuous morals. Those without walls, gates, and security systems are often the target of robbers and perpetrators of house breakings. And many people do not think to lock or nail every possession down, find that opportunists will loot and dismantle vehicles and steal anything criminals believe is worth more than $1. No one has escaped the effects of the pandemic and the rising costs of just about everything. However, the working class is taking a beating unseen in many years. During the pandemic, thousands of businesses were closed. Though the soundness and prolonging of those decisions are still being debated, the government of the Bahamas wisely also stated the Central Bank of the Bahamas reported in March that domestic consumer price inflation rose to 2.3% in the last quarter of 2021, compared to the 0.2% registered during the same period, 2020. Gas prices have increased by more than $1 since the start of the year. And despite Prime Minister Davis's promise of government intervention to offset the rising cost of living, we have seen no direct evidence of this taking place other than Bahamas Power and Light's apparent reluctance to fully pass through the cost of electricity to consumers. It further went on when the government held a job fair in Centerville this past weekend. Labor Minister Keith Bell appeared surprised that nearly 1,000 people from throughout New Providence showed up. And he went on, Bell said, we're going to have to appeal even deeper to Cabinet for us to create some sort of jumpstart program and add to the 52-week program and other initiatives to at least get persons some sort of employment. Several of those waiting in line told stories of unemployment and underemployment where salaries are no longer able to cover the necessities of life. The fact of the matter is that we currently have no idea what the unemployment rate actually is. The last labor force was conducted by the Department of Statistics in December 2019. That survey placed unemployment at 10.7%. And a recent international IMF report indicated that unemployment was estimated at 25.6% in 2020 and 18.1% 2021. Bell said he anticipates that new official unemployment figures will be released sometime in June. We find it curious then that his colleague, Minister of Social Services, said yesterday that because of the number of people depending on the Department of Social Services food assistance program decreased by more than 50% last month, many people are no longer in need of assistance. But to his credit, Wilscombe admitted the government does not want to celebrate too quickly. There is no doubt the economy continues to grow. And there's no question that unemployment is more robust this year than the first quarter last year. But there's no use in ignoring the obvious. Inflation is squeezing the most vulnerable as they try to navigate an incredibly trying set of circumstances. Madam Speaker, today we are talking about regulating digital assets.
The chair recognizes the honourable member for Fort Charlotte.
Madam Speaker, with your indulgence, the honourable member has read this extensive editorial. While the honourable member may have a fixation with the honourable member for Cat Island, Ronki, and San Salvador, but that is not the subject of this debate. Madam Speaker, I'm asking for a ruling. We all listened. The entire country has heard the quote. The quote is not relevant. I'm sure that you can find editorials dealing with digital asset, but this particular quote that the honourable member has chosen and selected is not relevant to this debate. And the rules require that it be relevant. The rules require.
The rules do require.
In the debate,
Honourable member, yes,
talks about digital asset. The idea of that is to try and improve employment, improve your economy. It is essential to identify that you do have an employment problem. It is essential to identify that you do have problems with inflation, food prices, etc. Because the digital asset bill, once employment comes about, then you can address many of the problems that I mentioned. So it is relevant. Madam Speaker, Madam Speaker, today we are talking about regulating digital assets. Many Bahamians have little or no assets. Indeed, this is one of the reasons why the last FNM government launched the Small Business Development Center and gave extraordinary funding to new small businesses. All many Bahamians have are bills and problems. Yet their Prime Minister has the inclination to travel with his big crew all over. Madam Speaker, our term in office was defined by a historic crisis. We had Irma, then Dorian, and then 6 months later, the pandemic. This term in office has significant difficulties too. The inflation problem is not a problem going away. The war in Ukraine has made things worse. We do not know how long this brutal war that is costing so many lives would last. And the government needs to focus. The government needs well-reasoned policies. The Bahamian people have not seen either. I see the governing party is now all into having carnival and partying in an ongoing pandemic. Let us not forget the many millions of previous PLP governments spent on carnival. Madam Speaker, in serious times, we have a government that cannot focus on what's important to our people. It is the people who will suffer because the Prime Minister and his government appears not focused. Madam Speaker, we must be focused on the problems that the people are facing today. The high cost of living, high cost of fuel, unemployment, and especially the poor people. They are the most vulnerable. I thank you, Madam Speaker. But before I close, I want to use my last 30 seconds. I would like the Minister of Health to point out a matter that's very important, and I don't think the Bahamian populace is appreciating the magnitude of this issue. COVID is here, and COVID is here to stay. We must use all resources to minimize the impact of COVID. But, Madam Speaker, what I'm concerned about is the post-COVID or long hauler syndrome, especially in the kids. It is stated by studies that up to 12 to 15%, and some studies state more, of our young kids may develop what they call the post-COVID or long hauler syndrome. What this does, Madam Speaker, individuals lose the ability to think, they become very tired, they suffer from anxiety, sleepiness, lethargy, and as a result, they cannot function or perform adequately in school. Their performance subsequently decreases. And as you speak to the pediatricians, they are seeing a lot of it. And it must be addressed, Madam Speaker, if you'd give me another minute, because this is important for the nation to hear. This is not political. This is not political. This is a serious matter. And we must address it as a multidisciplinary matter. Because many of the young kids coming in, because they were so accustomed to dealing with the computer, now they're going into classes to deal with individuals. There's a disconnect. They're finding great difficulty, and it's causing a series of psychological disturbances. The pediatricians would tell you it's a serious matter and it has to be dealt with. It's also seen in the adults, and the incidence is high in adults, causing the same problem. As a result of that, individuals cannot concentrate. They cannot perform. They're tired, lifeless, and as a result, they cannot perform in the job, and they subsequently stay away from the job, or they're fired, they're sent home, etc. Madam Speaker, I think we need to talk more in this country about the long haulers or post-COVID syndrome that we're seeing both in the adults and the kids. And the major first world countries are setting up multidisciplinary centers to deal with it, because it's a serious matter. And if we don't, we're going to lose a generation. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Asmini? The chair recognizes the Honorable Member for Golden Isles.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm grateful for this opportunity. And again, I'm thankful to the people of the great constituency of Golden Isles for affording me this opportunity to stand and to speak again on their behalf. Madam Speaker, I am very tempted to say some things, but I'm trying to exercise constraint.
Yes.
And Madam Speaker, I will wait for the opportune time, and I will deliver that blow. Madam Speaker, I would like to commend our leader, the member for Cat Island, Rumpkin, San Salvador, for the stellar leadership. He has brought not only to the party and delivered a stunning victory, but also the stellar leadership that was badly and desperately needed for our country at this time. And I am convinced that there's a reality that some people are just not accustomed to, and there's an illusion that they are more accustomed to the illusion and they speak from a position of illusion. Yes. And so I dare not join them in that state of illusion. I would rather stay and keep it real. Yes. And that's what these amendments speak to. Madam Speaker, firstly, I would like to begin and just advise members present and persons listening and watching that the World Environment Day will be celebrated next month, June 5th. But the Department of Environment Health Services will mark the occasion with a church service on Sunday, May 29th. That's 1 week from this Sunday, at 10:30 a.m. at the Transformation Ministries International number 11 Dignity Gardens. And we're extending an invitation to the public at large to join us. The Department of Environment and Health Services will be celebrating during the entire month of June. We'll be celebrating World Environment Day and have a number of activities planned for the entire month of June. Our usual monthly constituency cleanup had to be postponed last weekend due to the inclement weather. But we hope to complete that cleanup this weekend in Coral Harbor, weather permitting. I'd like to take this opportunity to commend our junior member of parliament, and I was here present with some other members of parliament and to listen to their debate, and she represented her constituency well. I speak of Ms. Shanika Munkar, and I just wanted to publicly commend her for the excellent job she did, and all the others. They represented their constituencies very well. On a sad note, I'd like to take this opportunity to extend condolences to the McGregor family of Bacardi Road on the passing of Charvis McGregor, who was laid to rest earlier this afternoon. He was an integral part of the core planning team at our constituency office. He is missed. He will be remembered for his commitment, for his dedication, and for his unselfishness, and for the tremendous respect that he demonstrated for everyone, and the voluntary service that he gave to his community. Our constituency office, we plan to honor his memory in a tangible way, and we intend to do that shortly. May his soul rest in peace. Madam Speaker, also, I'd like to extend condolences to the Thompson family. They tragically lost their son, Tony, last weekend. He was a young man, well-known and well-liked throughout the constituency. The circumstances of his death is one that no family would ever wish to find themselves in. And we pray that Almighty God will strengthen, will comfort, and will keep them during this most difficult time. And may his soul also rest in peace. I'm speaking before I speak to the amendments. The DARE Act and proposed amendments in the bill must promote inclusion and not exclusion, and should not discriminate against Bahamians regardless of their socio or economic status, especially those who have brought innovation to the market. Young, innovative Bahamians, and I'm speaking, just sharing this on behalf of several persons, such as Mr. Wayne Johnson and Mr. Paris Simmons, who was a constituent. They were pioneers that launched ICO's initial coin offering before this legislation was enacted. Yeah. In 2016, the above said individuals designed and created perhaps the first digital wallet in the Bahamas. Wayne Johnson and Paris Simmons went on to launch their first ICO, offering the initial coin offering in November, a year later, 2017, again before any legislation, guidelines, or policies were established. These young, professional, innovative Bahamians have been on the cutting edge of digital commerce for years. Their level of knowledge, experience, and expertise when it comes to digital assets must not go unnoticed and should be recognized. I believe we must continue to garner their input and recommendations and create forums where these young Bahamian professionals could advise and inform the government and other entities on opportunities. I believe we must afford them and others like them the opportunity to bring their local and international business contacts to help our country grow the industry and become a global leader in this new tier of financial services. This will set the Bahamas apart from our regional and international neighbors and position our country to lead the digital asset space. This bill seeks to bring financial innovation to the masses as it relates to digital payments, services, and assets. And they use, for an example, Bahamians taking and marketing one of our beautiful islands as a digital asset for individuals and companies to invest in virtually. With the commencement of a digital assets industry, the economic impact can be unimaginable and the employment possibilities endless for our country. We must continue to educate our citizens about the opportunities, the risks, and the legislation that arise in this new digital asset industry. We must build comfort and confidence in our systems, in our people, and the processes to not only grow, but also sustain the digital assets industry for decades. Our country is at the precipice for stronger growth and success if we manage this new industry carefully and collaboratively. We have the knowledge, we have the people, we have the resources, and I believe the determination to achieve unparalleled greatness. And now I speak specifically to the amendments. The Digital Assets and Registered Exchanges Act, known as the DARE Act, came into effect in December 2020, and its primary purpose was to build a legal framework to regularize the issuance, the sale, and trade of digital assets within the Bahamas. The DARE Act has been called a landmark legislation, as for the first time ever in our country, the law recognized digital assets. The Bahamas now joins a few other countries that has established comprehensive laws to regulate the digital asset industry. What are digital assets, you may ask? They are electronic files, like, for example, it's saved on a computer, a laptop, or a portable media player, electronic files of data owned by an individual or company which has value and can be used as a currency. Before in introduction of digital assets, the most known global currencies used were the US dollar, the European euro, the British pound, the Swiss franc, and the Canadian dollars and Japanese yen. The DARE Act now legally recognizes new digital currencies like blockchain and other cryptocurrencies. The DARE Act applies to any individual or company that promotes, that issues, sell, redeem, or invest in the digital asset business. What is a digital asset business? These are businesses involved in 1, digital token exchange, 2, payment service providers that use digital assets, and 3, digital assets service providers. The DARE Act mandates that companies must be registered with the Securities Commission of the Bahamas to carry on digital asset business. The companies must be fit and proper according to the Act and must comply with all provisions, rules, and guidelines. The DARE Act also mandates data protection and places a legal obligation on digital asset businesses to keep accurate information and documents on the digital assets and all participants in the transaction. According to the Act, Madam Speaker, a digital asset business must issue a notice or advertisement to the public that's approved by the Commission, inviting applications to subscribe or purchase digital assets. Failure to register will be considered an offense and will be subject to a penalty. The powers of the Digital Assets and Registered Exchange proposed in the amendments. The DARE Amendment Bill 2022 is extremely important and relevant as it seeks to deepen the legal framework by strengthening the Securities Commission of the Bahamas, strengthening their power to monitor and sanction digital asset businesses that did not register with the Commission or fails to comply with the provisions of the DARE Act. The DARE Amendment Bill gives the Commission the ability to establish procedures, systems, and tools to identify individuals who are not registered but are still engaging in digital asset business. The DARE Amendment Bill gives the Commission the ability and power to compel individuals or companies to 1, attend its offices and make a statement, 2, produce documents in its possession, and 3, give an explanation or further information. Madam Speaker, I speak to the penalties. The DARE Amendment Bill imposes significant consequences. It clearly states that failure to comply or uncooperative parties who refuse or neglect to act can be considered liable of contempt by the Commission. This is equivalent to contempt charges applied by a judge when there's a breach of an order or judgment of the court. The Commission has the power to impose a penalty of up to $100,000 to individuals or companies that fail to comply with requests or directives from the Commission. The impact, Madam Speaker, the DARE Amendment Bill will create a deterrent for potential fraudsters and criminals purporting to carry on digital asset business illegitimately. The DARE Amendment Bill will protect the public by ensuring that the information on any listed or approved digital asset that it's comprehensive, it's complete, and correct. Through the DARE Act and Amendment Bill, the public can be assured that the Commission has the ability and the power to act on all complaints or whistleblowers as inside information on potential illegal activity or breaches. The DARE Act and Amendment Bill, Madam Speaker, will not destabilize or compromise our local banks and financial services industry, but in fact, it strengthens it with comprehensive legal framework for a new currency. Madam Speaker, the DARE Act and Amendment Bill creates a standard that all digital asset businesses must adhere to, creating consistency within the industry. Madam Speaker, as I close, I am mindful of this phrase, to wipe away every tear from every eye. Madam Speaker, historically, that is what the PLP was founded and based on. And the foundation is still standing strong. Madam Speaker, my concern is that with this bill and these amendments, is that we seek a way to inform and to educate our populace on as broad a base as we possibly can, and to empower and to prepare as many to participate in this new and in this emerging industry and market. Madam Speaker, in our constituency, there are several persons who are actively involved in this. And in the month of July, we'll be hosting a conference and having those persons to share with the view to inform, to educate, and to empower as many persons as would come or would join in their various social media platforms. Because, Madam Speaker, as I said, historically, we've been that party. Historically, we've been the party to establish a strong and a thriving middle class. And I believe we will continue to strengthen and empower our people as we decrease the wealth distribution gap in our country, and we continue to rescue, to revive, to rebuild, and to grow our middle class. Madam Speaker, the proof is simple. We have done it before, and we are in a position to do it again. With that said, Madam Speaker, may Almighty God, Yahweh Elohim, continue to bless the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, from Grand Bahama to Inagua, from Bimini and the Berry Islands to Maguana, every island, every individual, and that he would make the wealth common. Golden Isles stand strong and supports these amendments. Golden Isles.
Thank you, Honorable Member. The Chair, as many, the Chair recognizes the Honorable Member for St. Barnabas.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I'll be very brief today. First, let me give Almighty God thanks for allowing me to continue to wake up every morning, as I always contend, and what I continue to say is the greatest country in the world, the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. I'm getting to that. Foxhill, I'm getting to that, Foxhill. Thank you. Yeah. Constituents love that too. It's a good thing. Well, that's what the people need. That's what they asked me for. No, they do need more than that. But I'm telling you with my... I'm telling you what my constituents in St. Barnabas are asking for. Now, if they're asking for that in Anglican, I respect that. You're the member for Anglican, so I am telling you what they're asking for. So, Thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. I appreciate that, Foxhill.
Can we restart the clock?
Yeah. Madam Speaker, before I get into the bill itself, as has been the theme for the day, as many members would have opined on different things important to and related to the economy and other aspects of our country. Just wish to say a few words. The last week on May 10th, we would have joined with Bahamians across the nation to remember the tragedy that happened off of Ragged Island with the 4 members of the Royal Bahamas Defense Force who gave their life to their country. And I'm reminded as I stand here today, the many selfless acts of so many Bahamians that give so much to our country, and to those particular men who will always be with us and their entire families. We owe them a great deal of gratitude, and so I wish to just thank their families for, and to remember them for what they've given the Commonwealth of the Bahamas in their sacrifices. Also, Madam Speaker, while I'm on my feet, I wish to give a, well, I won't say a shout out. I wish to commend congratulations to one of my constituents, a well-known constituent in Cynthia Mother Pratt, whose name will be adorned on the complex. And obviously the contribution of Miss Pratt, as I call her. I always tell her that I'm too junior to call her Mother Pratt. Is well known. And from I was a young man playing basketball, was always well aware of her contributions on so many levels, but particularly in sports as I played college basketball. So I just would like to congratulate her. Also wish to congratulate, Madam Speaker, Terrell McCoy, who has become a niece of mine through marriage, for bringing the bronze medal home from Carifta. And so I want to congratulate her and congratulate her family, her parents, on the great job that they've done in ensuring that she is becoming this great athlete that all of us in the entire country is proud of. Madam Speaker, Fox Hill, we talked about it already. There are, as we know, thousands of Bahamians, Madam Speaker, thousands of Bahamians who continue to struggle and who continue to be hurt negatively by the inflationary environment that we continue to deal with. Yes, sir. And I know that we will continue to ask the opposition, that is, for VAT to be removed off bread basket items. It is something that some may want to make light of, but definitely the cries of the people in St. Barnabas and across the length and breadth of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas demands that we continue to echo their cries to the government, for us to appreciate that as we speak, many Bahamians cannot afford a gallon of gas, which is over $6, cannot afford, a dozen eggs. And what is so profound, as we all know, those things exceed the minimum hourly wage. So it should really tell us the magnitude, among other things, and remind us of the great struggles many Bahamians are facing. And I don't say that lightly. I have heard and we have heard all different reasons why VAT cannot be taken off of bread basket items. The government has said that it's not feasible. Feasible does not mean impossible. It not being feasible just means that it's not easily adjusted, but meaning that it can be adjusted. And Bahamians are crying every day. And Bahamians across the political spectrum are crying every day for some relief to be brought to their lives as they continue to struggle every single day with the burdens of purchasing food and trying to put gasoline in their cars. Madam Speaker, most recently I had the opportunity, I was visiting a relative in the straw market, and had an opportunity to talk to a number of the vendors, just by way, again, of saying hello to some of my family members in the straw market. And the government may be aware of this, but, it's something that I told the vendors that I would bring to this parliament. And so the member for Fort Charlotte, who I think is responsible for the straw market, if he would have heard these cries before, then that is great, Madam Speaker. They have some great concerns about, I think that there's a staggered schedule that they're operating on. Obviously, it came about because of COVID. The schedule came about because of COVID, and so sorry. No, yeah, but that's not. Yeah, but oh man. But we passed that. That's not the point. I just said. No, hold on, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, protect me, please. Protect me, Madam Speaker, please. Right? I didn't say this blaming anybody. I simply said that I visited the straw market. I simply said that I visited the straw market, and the vendors in the straw market shared some things with me that I promised them in my duty as a member of parliament that I would bring and raise it here in this honorable place. I even said just now the member for Fort Charlotte, who I think is responsible for the straw market. I would have said just now on my feet that he might have heard these cries that I'm about to express, and if so, that is good. That's all. This isn't about ascribing blame. So there's a staggered schedule, and they're asking many of them are asking the government just to revisit the schedule. Let me just say 1 second, please, for Charlotte. Obviously, COVID would have influenced this present staggered schedule. All right, so obviously we are aware of that. Just again emphasizing that a number of vendors are asking that it be revisited because it's impacting them in a negative way. Sorry.
The chair recognizes the honourable member for Fort Charlotte.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I thank the member for yielding. Madam Speaker, the staggered schedule was on the recommendation of the Ministry of Health, and in my last conversation with the chairman about a week ago, I raised this question, and they're having consultation with the Ministry of Health. It's a very small space, and it's really a matter of public health. And as the Ministry of Health, which is in constant consultation as well as visitation of that area, based on their recommendation, it will be revisited. So it's not a matter which is exclusively within the discretion of the management, but it has to be on the guidance of the Ministry of Health.
Thank you, honourable member.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and I thank the honourable member for Fort Charlotte. Additionally, the vendors just to the north of Parliament here have also talked about some concerns as well. Sorry? tourism. Yeah. They've talked about some concern as well. Some seems to be logistics in terms of cruise passengers coming off the ship, not being able to patronize or be exposed to their business, as well as some shelter issues and then some bathroom facilities. And so that's something as well that I had expressed to them that I would bring to Parliament. Madam Speaker, one of the things that has always been important to me, and I'm sure to a number of parliamentarians, is that on different occasions that we ought to sometimes summon some objectivity despite these political lines and acknowledge that both major political parties have contributed significantly, and I know some may say that's debatable, but significantly to the Commonwealth, to the building of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. And I've said that because I believe that it is vitally important that we, and this may sound naive, but I'll say it anyway, I think that it's vitally important that we acknowledge when something works and when something has been done in good and well form, even if it's a previous government. And I truly believe that. As the member for Freetown would have said, that the reality of it is despite getting to, we agree on a destination, the route there may be something that, where you may have a difference. And so I respect that you can honestly and justifiably have a difference of opinion of how you get to a certain destination. So I'm not suggesting that every time that there's an opposite view or a different view, that means it's purely political. What I am saying is that where we can acknowledge the good things, or that a good thing has worked for the Bahamian people, that I believe we ought to do it. I believe that that's the duty that we owe the Bahamian people. And as an extension of that, as we debate this digital assets, this DARE Act and the amendment, the truth is this whole digital revolution, digital asset revolution, started under the Free National Movement. And maybe not directly in those words, members throughout the day, from a chronological standpoint, would have spoken to a number of policies and decisions that were made, Madam Speaker, that happened under the Free National Movement administration that would have led us here today. So we know that the DARE Act was drafted and passed under the Free National Movement. The sand dollar was created under the F&M, and so we know our pioneering position, if you will, is due in part to the great work of the Free National Movement. Madam Speaker, I intend to support this bill. I know that members was waiting to hear. I support this bill. But what I really would like to say or emphasize too, and the member, my leader would have spoken about it, the member from Marco City, among other things, is that as we carve out this piece of industry, and in a lot of respects, as it goes a long way in helping us to diversify our economy, I want us to keep in mind on our peripheral that we may have some persons, and probably have some persons, who don't want us to be in the business or to be successful in the business. And I have to say at this point, comparatively speaking, I have always been quite angered at times, even before becoming a member of Parliament, at the great deal of energy that OECD and the European Union would put in to move the goalposts as it relates to a lot of financial services, aspects of financial services. And clearly, for some time now, they obviously have not want the Commonwealth of the Bahamas in the business. And likewise, I hope, and it's my prayer, that this government and all governments after will ensure that we continue to hold on to our sovereignty, and assert our sovereignty. Yes, we make amendments and changes and enhancements to be a player in this the global community, there is no doubt. But we must continue to hold fast to our sovereignty and to determine, as our forefathers set it out, to determine our own destiny and to push back as reasonably possible. And I'd say reasonably possible because, again, we do live in a global community, and at the end of the day, we make decisions that benefit the Bahamian people, even if sometimes certain decisions cannot be appreciated or can be adequately litigated for the public, and that happens. But that was just something that I just really wanted to emphasize, because it's very, very, very important, Madam Speaker. And this regulation, these amendments, will go a long way. As I said, as we take off. I mean, this is an industry that's already started to take off. Obviously, there are some cautionary signs here and there, but I believe that there is an opportunity for this to reap dividends for the Commonwealth of the Bahamas and the Bahamian people, Madam Speaker. And so, Madam Speaker, with that, and as I close, as I said, today I would be very, very brief. Just would like to close by saying that I'm a bit reflective today, as most of us were today, but I'm a bit reflective today. And what I would just like to leave on the floor of this House today as I take my seat is that, I came into politics, Madam Speaker. I came into politics, I would say, as I'm sure all of us, wanting to serve as best as we can for as long as we can. But I just want to say, as I stand here today, that, again, it may be considered naive, but I believe I should say it, that we have to, our politics in a lot of ways and how we conduct our politics, okay, not talking about anything specific, has been in a lot of ways the greatest inhibitor to our progress as a country, the greatest inhibitor to our progress. And we must find some ways, we must find some ways to be able to be gladiators in the arena of politics, but still always ensuring that final destination, which is obviously an even greater Commonwealth, is something that we must continue to focus on. I'm very grateful that we live in the most beautiful country in the world, and the greatest country in the world. And so, Madam Speaker, with that and that slight reflection, I support this bill. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Asmini. The Chair recognizes the Honourable Member for Fort Charlotte.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I wish to begin by extending sympathy to you on your loss.
Thank you, Honourable Member.
And pray for you and your family during this period of mourning. I also want to say how grateful I am to the people of Fort Charlotte for having afforded me this privilege to represent them. And on this day, I wish to say to two of the queens in Fort Charlotte in their 90s, Mrs. Louise Popel and Mrs. Mary Marshall, two extraordinary women who have been who are community builders within Fort Charlotte. I also wish to thank the many volunteers and donors who organize and enable us to provide some of the senior mothers in Fort Charlotte pre-Mother's Day lunch at the Balmoral Club. And Miss Aaliyah Coley, who really spoke to the women in such a special and powerful way. And also to Mr. Pat Roll, the Bahamian crooner, right? Reminiscent of Nat King Cole, right? Yes. And also, I want to thank the Minister of Agriculture and also the Chairman of BAIC and Mr. Barry Wilmot, Ms. Cheryl Bow Moss, Mr. Miller, for facilitating a community meeting where we were able to give 200 backyard farming kits and provide a lecture in terms of backyard farming and also guidance in cooperative farming, a farming cooperative for the community of Fort Charlotte. Madam Speaker, I just want to make two observations. Oftentimes, persons who clean our community and landscape our community do it under contract. And I want to say that to recognize Mr. Doyle Burrows, who lives in St. Anne's. And Mr. Burrows, without a contract, in fact, he has one contract, and that contract is his social contract as a Bahamian. And on the basis of that contract, he cleans the passageway, Yamacraw Beach. He has put up beautifully designed benches and also garbage bins. They are colorfully designed. He goes into his own pocket and he contributes that. And that's the kind of social contract that I found very inspiring. And I know he was not looking for any credit, but it is incumbent upon me because there are thousands of Bahamians throughout the country and in our various islands who, just on the basis of this social contract, are putting their hands in their pocket, volunteering their time to clean, to make this environment much more livable for all of us. I also want to thank my brothers, the Member of Parliament for South and Central Andros, as well as the Honorable Member for North Andros and the Berry Islands for accompanying myself, my brother, Member of Parliament for South Beach, and Parliamentary Secretary the permanent secretary, and our technical team. First in first in North Andros. And we met with the staff members within the ministry, and we visited just about all of the contracts being carried out in North Andros, met with stakeholders within the community. And one of the interesting things, Madam Speaker, we often forget that we're not making laws and policies for Nassau. We are making laws and administering the affairs of the state for the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. And as we travel, we meet our colleagues and team members in the various family islands, as we did in Andros. And I must say, Madam Speaker, for the Ministry of Works, we have to do better. And I'm challenging us to do better, because I sit with the staff in our islands, and I must say that we are not doing sufficiently to fully integrate and provide professional opportunities for development and better integration. And the systems of governance we have to improve. In North Andros, for example, I remember we met Lloyd Newton. Lloyd Newton is a building inspector, carries out a number of functions, and said, Minister, we need more training. We are called upon to inspect projects and so on, using new building material, new methods and so on. So clearly, professional development and better incorporation of our colleagues. I also, in the South, Andros, had a wonderful meeting with all of the staff members, but I do recall most vividly David Wallace. And David Wallace said, Minister, I'm a patriot. Whether I have the equipment or not, I am going to keep Mangrove Key clean. And I must tell you, Madam Speaker, as we drove through Mangrove Key, it was clean. But it is inspiring when we meet colleagues, isolated, insufficient equipment, insufficient resources, even water. And as I came back, and as I'm happy the Undersecretary, the PS, the Director, because I was not satisfied. And I'm challenging my colleagues. Let us put systems in place to ensure that every member of the team of the Ministry of Works, wherever they are posted, are fully connected and they are resourced. In fact, more resources should be made available in the family islands because they're dealing with more difficult circumstances. They have to cover more area than colleagues in Nassau. So we have to really address this issue of governance within our country. And then, Madam Speaker, Reverend Mark Scott, inspiring visit to his residence where he's doing fish farming. Now, you know, Madam Speaker, I was once invited by Mr. Ben Fresh to Bahamas Food Services, and I saw them engage in fish farming. But right in Stafford Creek, you have this Bahamian resident engage in fishing, in fish farming. in his backyard and the potential to be a destination. We have these incredible, talented people throughout our archipelago, but they need opportunities, they need promotion, and they need funding. Madam Speaker, so I just want to say that I challenge myself to do more so that we better utilize the talent within our ministry. And also I would visit some of the facilities in Water and Sewage Corporation and also BPL. And I met with the chairman of BPL and the CEO this morning. The chairman of Water and Sewage Corporation, our deputy speaker, honorable member for North Eleuthera, and brought some matters to his attention, which I'm so delighted are being addressed. So the commitment is to really address our colleagues and enable them to do the best that they can do in our family islands. Madam Speaker, today, and first of all, I want to say that as I'm wrapping up, what is interesting is that we are unanimous. Both sides are unanimous in support of these two bills before us. The honorable member for East Grand Bahama raised the question of what does the digital asset registration exchange mean? And yes, it represents a subsector of the financial services industry. But he asks a more probing question: what should it mean for us as Bahamians? And that is as an opportunity for us to develop the expertise among within the Bahamian population to code, to create apps, and challenging us really to build capacity not only to facilitate, but also to be creators within this space. And I'm happy that this observation was made because the Minister of Education, the Honorable Member for Angliston, has tasked the Ministry of Education, to expand the computer program. And this year we'll be introducing for the first time in the public education system coding, app development. So it is major because it means that not only in a private school, but it means that in our public school, the young, talented students would have an opportunity to, in a systematic way, and to learn how to code. And with coding, we have a gateway to innovation and creation and apps that can help the Bahamas solve its problems. Madam Speaker, the honorable member for Marco City reminded us that the Bahamas is a small axe. You know, Bob Marley talks about the small axe and the big tree. Not that, you know, for those of us who are conservationists, we don't want to cut down any tree, right? But the metaphor is that as a small nation state, we have to be nimble, but we have to be bold, we have to be brave, and we have to be innovative. And the Bahamas, from its history, has, and this goes right across the board, both administration, we have been nimble, Madam Speaker, because the financial services sector has been a target for protectionist assaults by onshore financial centers. And these onshore financial centers are in European Union countries, in G7 countries, G20 countries. And those are the countries and their ad hoc bodies such as the FATF. They are the gatekeepers. They're the ones making the rules, the 40 recommendations of the FATF, the recommendations with respect to combating the financing of terrorism, but they do not apply those rules evenly across the board. They tend to apply it much more aggressively in offshore financial centers like the Bahamas, these former colonies. And therefore, Madam Speaker, while we are calling for a level playing field, at the same time, Madam Speaker, we are more compliant than they are. Right? Because the most egregious forms of money laundering and terrorist financing is not in the Bahamas. In fact, barely in the Bahamas, if at all, but documented in the countries of the European Union and the OECD. So, Madam Speaker, it demonstrates what we are talking about today is that while our industry, financial services, has been under assault, and fortunately we were removed off of the gray list last year under the former administration, we were removed. I know what it takes, Madam Speaker, to lead this process, because in 2005 as Attorney General, I was the competent authority in terms of international cooperation. And I know the fight you have to go through in Paris when you go and sit there and they treat you not as a sovereign, not as a sovereign, right? And I know the indignities representing a sovereign country that we have to go through. But we succeeded in 2005, and we succeeded also last year. But even under that pressure, Madam Speaker, we were able to innovate. And I do commend the Securities Commission and Ms. Christina Roll and the extraordinary professionals who manage the Securities Commission, because what is happening now is that the United States of America is now looking at the Securities Commission of the Bahamas and trying to figure out, Madam Speaker, how to bring the cryptocurrency industry, many of whom are American citizens, into their space. So under the most challenging circumstances, Hurricane Dorian, where we lost $3.4 billion of our GDP, after having been locked down for almost 2 years, we have been nimble. And not only that, Madam Speaker, we do not give credit to the strength of this jurisdiction as a financial center. When I was in Gabon with the honorable member of Golden Isles. Gabon, an oil-producing country committed to carbon credit, they saw the Bahamas as a possible place where they can trade their carbon credit. So we, in terms of the bankers, in terms of the lawyers, in terms of the accountants, in terms of all of the financial intermediaries within this jurisdiction, we compete with the best in the world. And all of us must be proud of that, Madam Speaker. And today, Madam Speaker, the Bahamas is at the forefront of the digital asset management exchange space, which is extraordinary because this is the fastest growing area within the global financial services. It is also, Madam Speaker, a disruption. It will have profound geostrategic implications. This is the most significant development after World War II, because after World War II, you had the Bretton Woods system, the UN, the GATT, which is now the World Trade Organization. You have the World Bank. In other words, and then you have the US dollar, Madam Speaker, the international global tender that we are holding as our foreign reserve. And what we have in one company, founded by a 30-year-old youngster, right? With a value of up to $37 billion several weeks ago, now possibly down to 28 or $30 billion. But the GDP of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas is roughly $12.5 billion. So that tells you the significance of one exchange and the net worth of the founder of that one exchange, that we're talking about a very significant development. A U.S. congressional delegation was here 2 weeks ago, primarily to look at this exchange. Now, Madam Speaker, what we do have global consequences, and this is why, Madam Speaker, in the white paper published by the Prime Minister, it lays out some guiding principles. It says that this industry will be guided by pragmatic and proportionate approach. Pragmatic and proportionate, Madam Speaker. In other words, to regulate in an expansive manner, but to have high regard for the standard of this jurisdiction. In other words, not sacrificing the robustness of the regulatory oversight. Yes, to have robust oversight as our regulators exercise, but to be expansive, to have a nimble touch. And the Securities Commission, Madam Speaker, has demonstrated this, and also to take a risk-based approach to the regulation. In other words, Madam Speaker, we are setting the standard, the global standard in terms of regulating digital asset industry. In other words, this is a global leadership. It's not a regional leadership. It is a global leadership, Madam Speaker. And therefore, how we conduct ourselves in this place as well must have that consciousness that the world is watching us. The world is watching the manner of our bearing. And this is why when it comes to the critical interests and assets of the country, we're not looking at party. We're looking at the national interest. And notwithstanding the heat, Madam Speaker, because there was some heat, but I look at the substance. Every speaker, whether enthusiastically or in a muted way, agreed and supported these bills. For a good. You know, so Madam Speaker, we have had a robust and a very spirited exchange, all related to the peace, order, and good government of the Bahamas. But at the end of the day, the people's work was done. And it was done in a manner that is unanimous in terms of how we express our support. And therefore, Madam Speaker, on that note of unanimity, I would move. Is there, Mr. Leader, is there another? Yes, Madam Speaker, I would now put the question. Yes, I would move that the question now be put, Madam Speaker, that the Digital Asset and Registered Exchange Amendment Bill 2020 and the Financial Transaction Reporting Amendment Bill 2022 be put.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Is there a seconder? Okay. So I'll go to that. Okay, it has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read a second time and committed. What is the bill? The other bill? What's the bill? Digital Assets and Registered Exchanges Amendment Bill 2022. As many are in favor will remain seated. Those that are opposed will stand. The motion is carried. Ordered that the bill be read a second time and committed.
A bill for an act to amend the Digital Assets and Registered Exchanges Act to provide for the monitoring and sanction of persons carrying on or purporting to carry on digital asset business activities without the requisite registration.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Further second reading of bills? The Chair recognizes the Honorable Member for Centerville.
Madam Speaker, I now turn my attention to the amendment to the Financial Transaction Reporting Act 2018.
No.
Move for second reading.
Move for a second reading, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Member. No. It's been moved and seconded that the following bill be read a second time and committed. Financial Transaction Reporting Amendment Bill 2022. As many that are in favor will remain seated. Those that are opposed will stand. The motion is carried. Ordered that the bill be read a second time and committed.
A bill for an act to amend the Financial Transaction Reporting Act.
For the second reading of bills? Thank you, Honorable Member. Committee of the Whole? We'll go back. Chair recognizes the honourable member for Centerville.
Yes. Madam Speaker, I beg leave to lay on the table of the House a copy of the following: the Digital Assets and Registered Exchanges, Anti-Laundering, Countering Financing of Terrorism, and Countering Financing of Proliferation Rules 2022.
Thank you, honourable member. Order that document be brought up. Order the document to lie on the table. And honourable members, I'm also lying on the table that document that the honourable member for Kalani said that he would lay. Thank you. For the second reading of bills?
For the second readings,
Thank you.
Madam Speaker, I now move that the House resolve itself into Committee of the Whole
Thank you, honourable member.
with the Deputy Speaker and the Chair.
Is there a seconder? It has been moved and seconded that this House do now resolve itself into the Committee of the Whole with the Deputy Speaker and the Chairman of the Committee of the Whole in the chair. As many are in favor will remain seated. Those who oppose will stand. The motion is carried. The House will now resolve itself into the Committee of the Whole with the Deputy Speaker and the Chairman of the Committee of the Whole in the chair.
They figure it's your people.
Yeah, no, they're not.
But just double check it.
Yeah, they use the money to
Yeah.
senior citizens.
Well, that's good. Yeah.
They have a senior citizens.
Oh,
fund
yeah.
also there.
I just thought it was your people.
Yeah. We usually get 10,000 from our culture.
Right.
Just these two? Committee of the Whole.
Mr. Deputy, I now move that the long title of the bill be approved.
Is there a seconder? It has been moved.
Yes, the Digital Assets Bill.
Long title.
It's a long title.
It has been moved and seconded that the long title of the bill be agreed. As many are in favor will remain seated. Those opposed will stand. The motion is agreed.
Mr. Deputy, I now move that the short title of the bill be approved.
It has been moved and seconded that the short title of the bill be agreed. As many are in favor will remain seated. Those opposed will stand. The short title of the bill is agreed.
Mr. Deputy, I now move that sections 2 to 6 be agreed.
Second. It has been moved and seconded that section 2 through 6 of the bill be agreed. As many are in favor will remain seated. Those opposed will stand. Section 2 through 6 is agreed.
Mr. Deputy, I now move that the bill in its entirety be agreed.
It has been moved and seconded that the bill in its entirety be agreed. As many are in favor will remain seated. Those opposed will stand. The bill in its entirety is agreed.
Mr. Deputy, I now move that the Financial Transactions Reporting Amendment Bill, long title, be agreed.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the long title of the bill be agreed. As many are in favor will remain seated. Those opposed will stand. The long title of the bill is agreed.
Mr. Deputy, I now move that the short title of the bill be agreed.
And second.
It has been moved and seconded that the short title of the bill be agreed.
As many are in favor will remain seated. Those opposed will stand. The short title of the bill is agreed.
Mr. Deputy, I now move that sections 2 through 7 be agreed.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that section 2 through 7 be agreed. As many are in favor will remain seated. Those opposed will stand. Section 2 through 7 is agreed.
Mr. Deputy, I now move that the bill in its entirety be agreed.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the bill in its entirety be agreed. As many are in favor will remain seated. Those opposed will stand. The bill in its entirety is agreed.
Mr. Deputy, I now move that the Speaker to take the chair.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the Speaker to take the chair. As many are in favor will remain seated. Those opposed will stand. Madam Speaker will take the chair. Madam Speaker, I beg leave to report that the Committee of the Whole has examined several bills making no amendments.
Honorable members, the Deputy Speaker and Chairman of the Committee of the Whole has reported that the committee has examined the bill, having made no amendments thereto. Third reading and passing of bills.
Madam Speaker, I now move for the third reading and passing of the bill, Digital Assets and Registered Exchanges Amendment Bill 2022.
Thank you, honorable members. It has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read a third time and passed. As many are in favor will remain seated. Those opposed will stand. Order that the bill be read a third time and passed.
A bill for an act to amend the Digital Assets and Registered Exchanges Act to provide for the monitoring and sanction of persons carrying on or purporting to carry on digital asset business activities without the requisite registration.
Order that the bill do now pass and the title thereof declared to be Digital Assets and Registered Exchanges Act 2022. For the third reading of bills.
Madam Speaker, I now move for the third reading and passing of the Financial Transaction Reporting Amendment Bill 2022.
Second.
Thank you, honorable members. It has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read a third time and passed. As many are in favor will remain seated. Those opposed will stand. Ordered that the bill be read a third time and passed.
A bill for an act to amend the Financial Transaction Reporting Act.
Ordered that the bill do now pass and the title thereof be declared to be Financial Transaction Reporting Act 2022. Further third reading of bills?
No further third readings, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, honorable member. Order that the clerk to take the bills passed by the House today to the Honorable Senate for their deliberation and to desire their concurrence. We will now go back to the order of business. Consideration of Senate's amendments, resolutions.
None, Madam Speaker.
Member statements, appointment of select committees, instructions to select committees, discharge of select committees, notices for future meetings.
Madam Speaker, I'd like to renew our notices in the name of the government.
Thank you, honorable member.
Renew all business in the name of the opposition, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Adjournment?
Madam Speaker, I now move for the adjournment to May 25th, 2022 at 10 a.m.
Is there a seconder? Thank you, Honorable Member. It has been moved and seconded that the House at its rising do now adjourn to Wednesday, 25th of May, 2022 at 10 a.m. As many are in favor, will remain seated. Those opposed will stand. The motion is carried. Final adjournment?
Madam Speaker, I now move for, I'm just having a good laugh with Marcus City and Fox Hill. Madam Speaker, I now move for the adjournment of the House to Wednesday, May 25th at 10 a.m.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Thank you. It has been moved and seconded that the House do now adjourn. As many are in favor will remain seated. Those opposed will stand. The motion is carried. The House stands adjourned to Wednesday, 25th of May, 2022 at 10 a.m.
All right. You know, possibly to say as many as are about.
Moringa is good for everything. And you, well, you could, when you're eating just, you're eating the seeds. Yeah, but you can get the actual.